Hello, this is Jeremy Coho, Technical Marketing Engineer with Cisco Systems, and today I have a demo of the zero-touch provisioning feature within iOS XE. So we're going to look through a couple slides, understand the feature and the technology, how it works and fits together, and then we're going to go to the demo and actually take a look at how it works on a real system. So with that, let's begin. So again, this is iOS XE Zero Touch Provisioning with Jeremy Coho. I did put on just my contact details on here as well as the GitHub page. So this is where some of the code samples that you'll see in some of the slides, as well as in the demo, you'll be able to find those code samples on there. So at a high level, what we're going to be looking at is just an overview of this feature, and then we're just going to move quickly into the demo. So as far as iOS XE programmability goes, there's really four main compartments or days, as we refer to here. And today we're focusing specifically on the zero-touch provisioning as part of day 0. So this is used for device onboarding when we have a new device. So the feature overview basically says here that it's used to programmatically configure new devices. So what happens when there's an iOS XE device that boots up and there's no configuration on it? It'll get a DHCP option 67 back with a Python file from the DHCP server, and it'll execute that file within the guest shell. So we'll talk about each of these components in details, but there are some references here, specifically the blog and there's a recording on YouTube, so you can go and understand what the process actually looks like. As well, I also listed the configuration guide on here, so that has some good details as well when you're going to implement this feature. So as far as support for this feature goes, basically across the Cat9K platform, with some of the new SKUs, as well as on the routing platform. Specifically, I wanted to call out the CSR 1000. That's the virtual platform now that has support for the zero-touch provisioning feature. And then, of course, the 9800 series wireless controllers also support zero-touch provisioning. Now, at a really high level, again, how and when does ZTP happen? So when the device boots up and there's no configuration, it'll send a DHCP request out on the management or the front panel ports. And in step 2, if the DHCP response comes back with option 67, containing a .py or a Python file, then the device will start up the guest shell. And within guest shell, we have access to this thing called the Python API, and that enables the complete device configuration. It has an API into iOS XE that allows for the configuration. So the guest shell, we've talked about that a little bit, and it's basically a Linux container that sits on top of Cisco iOS XE that allows access to the boot flash and access to the Python modules for configuration. So there's a lot of use cases that are enabled because of the guest shell and some of the integration that's capable there. Just some highlights of guest shell. It does come with Python, so we can use the pip package manager to install additional packages, as well as bash. So we can use, it is CentOS based, so we can use yum to go in and install additional packages that we need through that package management system as well. So again, very flexible and very dynamic. Now, just a couple words about the Python modules. There's basically 3 modules that ship with the on-box Python interpreter on iOS XE. For doing show commands, execute, and then as well as configuration commands. So we're able to completely configure the device as well as use show commands to get variables. So one of the common use cases is to use the show command to get the device serial number, or take a look at the CDP neighbors, and then use that as a variable within the Python script. So today we are using Python 2 that's nearing end of life, and we do have support for Python 3 beginning with iOS XE 17.1. Now, moving over to the demo here, let's actually just move over here, and let me just clear all my config. Clear buffer, clear buffer. So on the bottom screen, let's see, let me log into this switch. And if I do a show inventory, we'll see, show inventory. We'll see what kind of device this is. It's a Cat 9300 24. And if we look at the version, including 17, we'll see that this is running 17.2. So let me give it a write. We'll just save any configuration that's on there, and we'll give it a write erase. So I've just removed any configuration on there, and now I'm going to give it a reload. So what's going to happen now is the device is going to go down for reboot. So I'm actually connected through the console here. So we'll actually be able to watch the reboot process and the messaging come up as part of that process. And then over here on the right, you'll notice that I have an ICMP ping going to 10.115. That's the IP that my switch should have when it comes back up. You'll notice that we were getting ping responses back, but once I started the reload, that's now stopped. So if it's configured properly, then we'll see when it comes back up, the ping's coming back. But while we wait for the device to reboot, we can take a look at some of the infrastructure components here. So if we take a look at the DHCP configuration, dhcpd.conf, there's basically just one subnet configured here, and we have option boot file name, option 67. So what this option 67 here does is it tells the iOS XE device where to go to get the Python file and how to get it. So in this case, we're using HTTP coming from the, this is the same Ubuntu server that we're on here at 10.113, and where to go and download the specific Python file from, which is just on the root of the web server. So while this is still booting up, we can actually go and take a look at what this Python file is going to be. And when we look at it, we'll see the 10.115 IP address that we're pinging here. So if we open this up in VI, it's in var ww html ztp simple. When I open up this file here, we can see that it's about 20 or so lines long. And it's basically, it starts off by importing that the CLI module. This is the Python API or Python CLI module that ships with iOS XE that allows us these integrations. So what's happening here on this line here is I'm actually configuring port GI1024 to use the 10.115 IP address. I'm also configuring the username and password and some other features like AAA, the SCP server, the host name, IOX, some other programmability features. So at the end of this script, I'm going to run some output, the show IP interfaces brief. So we're going to see the show command output, which is telling us what the IPs are, as well as some other debugging output telling us that the execution is complete and that the script is done running. So let me exit out of here. And I have a script here called watch the ZTP log. So we'll be able to see when the device actually grabs the Python file. So we should see that it's right around now, or actually, no, this is from the earlier release. Let me clear this up so we see when it actually comes in. Because the device is still booting up here. This is the day 0 config that we typically see when the device is coming up, but this is the message to pay attention to that says no startup config. This is because we did that write erase and then we reloaded it to simulate a brand new device. So when you first buy this from or receive it from manufacturing or shipping, this is the process that it's going to take. Now you'll notice there's this other command up here, or other messaging here saying, would you like to enter the initial configuration dialog? So if you send any input now, then that's going to interrupt the sequence. So what's happening now is the day 0 auto install process is happening. It's bringing up the management and the VLAN 1 interface, and it's going to start sending DHCP requests. And that's what we see in the top here. Is a couple DHCP messages coming in. If I just make this a little smaller, we see there's a couple DHCP discovers, right? We see, I think I have the duplicate turned on here. But we see the DHCP discover, the offer, and the request. So the DHCP transaction is completing. And then if we actually watch on the console, it tells us that it got an IPv4 address, 10.1.1.150, and there is a option 67, the boot file name. So at this point, it starts up the guest shell. We can see some messages on here saying downloading the actual Python file and then activating the guest shell. So now the guest shell has been activated and it actually starts to execute the Python script. So here we have the output from our script saying we're starting the script and actually start configuring details on the switch. So it goes through each of the configuration steps that we told it to, like configuring the IP, AAA, and some other features. And then at the very bottom, it gives us the output from the show IP interfaces brief, right? So we get to see actually what IPs are active on this device. And then you'll notice that we started getting some ICMP packets coming back from here. If we scroll up, about around here is when we started to get packets back from this, because that's when the script finished. And then what happens is we shut down the guest shell because the script finished execution successfully. And then we see some messages just on the terminal as the device is configured and some features are set. Here we just see the clock being synced to NTP, for example. So now we're at the login prompt. We can log in with the username and password that we provided. And then again, we can just do a show version. Check the uptime, right? So we can see this has been up just 3 minutes, and we'll just give it a write. So that's what I have for the demo here. So with that, we can just go back to the slides and just really quickly review what we looked at here. So we saw the logs from the DHCP server. Here's the Python file that we're using. And again, it's copied pretty much cut and paste right out of the GitHub example. The DHCP server, again, this is really important for the option 67. And then I did just want to close with a couple of resources. There are some blog posts talking about some integrations and the configuration on blogs.cisco.com, as well as on the DevNet site. There's some really good resources on here for the guest shell, so you can go play with that as a resource, as well as some other programmability features for model-driven programmability. So with that, wanted to thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.